I cannot adequately put into words the trauma and despair that comes with waiting to either lose your own life, your child's life, or both. For days, I was locked in this bizarre and avoidable hell. Would Willow's heart stop, or would I deteriorate to the brink of death? The answer arrived 3 very long days later. In a matter of minutes, I went from being physically healthy to developing sepsis, a condition in which bacteria in the blood develops into infection with the ability to kill in under an hour. I spent the next 3 days in the intensive care unit, surrounded by my family who booked last-minute flights because they feared for my life. I spent another 3 days in a less critical unit of the hospital, all because I was denied access to reasonable health care due to Texas's new abortion bans. What I needed was an abortion, a standard medical procedure.
That was the lead plaintiff who, along with 4 other women, has just filed a new lawsuit challenging Texas's extreme abortion bans. The 5 women have one thing in common. They all sought out abortions in the state of Texas because their pregnancies posed life-threatening risks to either their own lives or that of their fetuses, and they were all denied that critical health care. And now this coalition of women is suing the state of Texas in the first lawsuit of its kind since Roe v. Wade was overturned, where pregnant people themselves are challenging the state's abortion ban. Joining us now is Nancy Northrup, president and CEO of the Center for Reproductive Rights, the organization that helped bring this lawsuit. Nancy, thanks for being here tonight. I know you've had a very busy day. I'd love to just get to the sort of substance of this lawsuit, because you all, the plaintiffs, are not seeking to overturn Texas's very extreme ban, but instead looking to clarify that physicians can offer, I believe, or make exceptions in life-threatening cases. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you decided to pursue that route?
Yes, but before we talk about the law, if I could just say something about the 4 women who were there today, the 5 that have filed this lawsuit. You know, they never wanted to be in front of those mics in front of the Texas state capitol, but Texas has caused this harm to them. They wanted to have healthy pregnancies. They didn't. And when their pregnancies had severe complications, they were forced to undergo threats to their life and their health. 4 of them had to leave the state of Texas. Amanda, as you just heard, went into sepsis because they would not give her care. And that is because of the abortion ban in the state of Texas. So, yes, I will talk about the legal theory, but it was such an honor to be there with these brave women today as they stood up to a state that has, imposed a 99-year prison sentence in the case of abortion. So what we are challenging here is the fact that you should be able to get medical care in the doctor's judgment when it is needed because you have a threat to your health or your life, and including the threat to your future fertility. This is what these women had at risk as well: their health, their life, their future fertility. And we are saying that the emergency exception, which is totally unclear right now in the state of Texas, has to be made clear that it's the doctor in consultation with the patient who is making that judgment.
And I absolutely want to focus on the stories of the women here who absolutely seem like they would have standing given the harm that was inflicted, as you say, not just on them, the unborn, but also their future selves, right? Their ability to have children down the line if they choose to do that. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of this lawsuit? I mean, I can imagine coming forward to have to share this story with anybody, but to have to be a lead plaintiff or any kind of plaintiff in such a nationally discussed lawsuit has got to be intimidating at best. How did these women come together to file this lawsuit?
Well, of course, it's a hard decision to make and was considered for months. They'd just been through pregnancy crises. They were mourning from those experiences and recovering. And it's not easy to take on the state of Texas. But they decided to do so. And also in our complaint, which is, 91 pages long, we also put in there the stories beyond the 5 plaintiffs in this case. We put in the stories of other women in the state of Texas who have gone into medical complications and been denied abortion care in other states across the country, Ohio, Alabama, Louisiana, and more. This isn't something that's just happening to these 5 women or just happening in the state of Texas. It's happening across the country because when states ban abortion care, they make every pregnancy a dangerous situation.
It's so true. I think the politicians in the state of Texas really miscalculated what was going to happen, especially on public opinion, once women started coming forward with their stories. Do you think that this could actually sway some Texas lawmakers into understanding how draconian this law is?
Unfortunately, they have not been listening to date. They could have fixed this. They could have clarified this. It's now March. Roe was reversed back in June, but it should shock the conscience of every single one of those lawmakers in the state of Texas who have enacted these blanket bans on abortion. And I'll just say, these women's stories, this case is dealing with these particular stories of pregnancy complications, but really every person who's denied the right to an abortion in Texas should have that right.
It is a national problem, even if we are focused on this specific group of women. Nancy Northrup, President and CEO of the Center for Reproductive Rights. Thank you for your time tonight. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Alex.